I'm Ulisani Ravere. Welcome to For the Culture. Shows like The River and Gomorrah have taken the language and culture of Spitori, which wasn't popular outside of Pretoria, and they've made it mainstream. We see it come alive in the characters and the storylines. Today on For the Culture, we talk about the impact that language has on our lives. Joining me for this conversation are voiceover artist, presenter, and actress who plays Jackie Hlongwane on Gomorrah, Liram Tetwa, and from the Johannesburg Institute of Advanced Studies at the University of Johannesburg, it's the former chairperson of the Pan-South African Language Board and award-winning author and poet, Dr. David Wamahlamela. Thank you so much for joining me. Either way, Kiratile. Liram, let's start with you. What would you say the importance is of us telling our stories in our language?
I think over and above language preservation, it speaks to representation. Because like Ntabi saying off of the street, hears me speaking a language she speaks, she believes that dreams are possible. Zaya, before I change my mind.
Easy.
So it's a representation thing, it's a preservation thing, it's a long-term growing and building thing.
It's a I matter.
Yes.
You know, and
yes.
It's often that if we don't see ourselves on media platforms, you're like, wait,
yes. Where am I?
Yes. Yeah.
Uska blame enough for the actions at it. Hello, na flopolena, Zaya on report. Otherwise, it's a man.
David, would you say that there is a fair representation when it comes to South African languages on these international series, on our very own shows? Is it at the level at which it should be at? Can it be better?
Not yet, but I think before we should worry about what we do to the world, we should worry about what we do to ourselves. And that is exactly what you said, that representation. What are we saying to the child on the street when they watch TV? Do they see their reflection, or do they think they need to become in order to be there?
You're on a series that really has, had to do with children, especially at school when we see you being mistress and you're being serious. But when we talk about children in society, are we moving to a time where we're all becoming westernized and forgetting our languages, forgetting our cultures and traditions? Ndimuvenda, my husband is Ngumxhosa. We have our child, and the language we have in common is English.
I think we're trying the best we can do with what we have. So for instance, back to the television example. If we're watching television, there are people that are speaking to each other in 5 different languages in one scene, and the assumption is that they all understand one another. And I think it's trying to teach us a high level of inclusion when it comes to language. So the closer we get to inclusion and understanding that this is something worth learning, the quicker it will be for us to move away from we are speaking languages that are not our own.
I love what you said about I don't need to understand to respond, but learning to just understand and to take the words in. Do you think that media should be slotting itself in that role where it's filling the role that a mom can't be teaching her child 5 different languages, but on a TV series, that's realistic?
Sometimes we present linguistic development as if when I learn one language, I must remove one language, and there is just in my mind one space
There's
for
only
one
space
language.
for one.
And I think this that we have embraced, which is called English, and it belongs to other people. And you are in a space where you cannot grow, you cannot be innovative, because people will keep on saying, the actual English, but...
Or what is this in English?
Exactly. And that is where the space like Siputori is important also, because it's a space where you can just be and no one will come and say,
you said that wrong.
Yeah, you said it wrong. And, according to the original Sipitori, there is no original Sipitori. And that is, for me, what is fundamental. Presenting language in such a way that the coming generation can start owning it and enjoying breaking it or making it or molding it in whatever way, and knowing that this is ours.
One thing we must never forget is that if it doesn't move and it's not innovative, then it doesn't grow.
True.
Then it literally just ends there. So we find ourselves in difficult spaces where I grew up with a staunch Tswana grandmother that says, "Gore, how sa bui Setswana sentle, di ji tsa gago di tswe, ha o bui Setswana." Right? So then you end up feeling self-conscious.
And be corrected, I suppose, from a space and a place of love,
Yes.
as opposed to from a place of correction,
Judgment and
you know,
correction. Yes.
and judgment. You're absolutely correct. What are some of the ways that we can ensure that, especially the kids that we say go to Model C schools, who are at a higher risk of losing their languages and not knowing their mother tongue, what are some of the ways that we can incorporate to ensure that we learn and we do better? And I'm saying we because I'm including myself in that.
The real linguistic development has nothing to do with all these governmental or all these formal platforms. We need to make it fun. I mean, when are we going to have spelling bee in our languages?
In our own languages.
Can you imagine
We
a
fail.
Pitori spelling bee? Oh my goodness, that would be so much fun.
We'd fail because half of the words don't exist.
But that's the whole point. You know, it's like define udese.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
use it in a sentence, please.
Use it in a sentence, please. Oh my God. That is really a brilliant idea. It's such a brilliant idea.
Unpopular opinion, but music and pop culture hold a strong learning material capacity that we're taking for granted. It's some of the easiest ways that I've learned languages that are considered to be difficult. Amapiano, for instance. You know that because it's pop culture and it's moving forward, it's a cool way to learn. So even those that don't want to are somewhat forced to. We look at songs like Nkau Tempel. About the entire population didn't know what that meant. But simply because of the value and power that this genre of music holds as a pop culture speaker, people are going, so what does this mean?
So it's like songs like, you know, Chelete ki scooter, namela. You might not know what namela is, and it might just be one word that you then go and you're inspired to go and read up more about it or learn what it actually means. Then you learn another word, and suddenly you're structuring an entire sentence in a different language.
Yes.
I think that is the attitude we should adopt, that any opportunity that we get, we don't need a formalized kind of a
Setup.
platform. And and I think that is the best method.
Lyra, how do you think that we as broadcasters, you know, as people who are in the media space, can be more intentional about the preservation of our languages?
Well, firstly, it's commendable that one, as an actress, you need to speak actor, actress, and others. You need to speak one of the official languages, right? Excluding
Other than English.
Yes. Right? It's commendable that it's a must. However, I think where we are slacking is the ratio. Because I can get away with saying, for instance, Genzimo Kauchung, right? Which is essentially a full sentence in my vernac. When you're on a long running, a day-to-day, sometimes it gets very difficult to translate the script yourself because you get it in English. But I think if we put in extra effort, I think it would go a long way in terms of us breaking down the ratio that it's actually 80% vernac and 20% English.
We should, and SOPs are doing very good in terms of breaking all those. Of course, some of us are feeling pain. Kore Movango is no longer Movango wa. I told you you are not alone. I told you you are not alone.
We're all trying.
So, yeah, the secret is out.
Lyra, did you ever think to yourself in your time as an actor that there would come a time where Spitori is a part of the fiber of a script? As in, when you don't do it, we're like, no, man, she's
Something's
being out
wrong.
of character. Something's off.
I'm going to be honest with you, right? And you're the first person I'm being honest with. When I auditioned for the role of Jackie Kungwane, got the part great. I spoke English for a good 3 months.
You did, and you were quite, you know, you were
Uppity, right?
mistress, yes.
And then the people with the powers that be came in on some, you're speaking too much English. So long short, I was tired of being an out-of-work actor. So I needed something that was going to differentiate me from Mutumang Lemang and solidify me in the industry. And I was like, my mother tongue is essentially Sipitor. And I use that slightly as a way to audition for the river.
How'd that work out for you, girl? Okay, basically she's saying the river must apologize. She's not gonna let the words come out of her mouth. So now I'll tell you, the river lira.
No, but
at least you're keeping it in the family. Oh. Okay. Momoye.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But for Stano Horowena,
Yeah.
you are correct for this role. Okay.
Something.
Anything.
No, my
Let this.
Thank you so much for joining me for such an eye-opening conversation. You know, I think the conversation around language can never be had enough because you know, and when we get an opportunity to be able to sit with others who feel the same about their own languages and we get to flow and ebb.
You're so sexy. That was very sexy.
It's always really awesome. I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation as well. Don't forget to catch a Jackie Hlongwane Lira Mthetho on Gomora weekdays on Mzansi Magic.